Welcome back. In this clip, we'll create an effect of dry sand while using the 3D text. So this 3D text is filled up with the particles. So for that, we are required to select the 3D text, go inside the nParticles, and we have the fill object. I'm going with the resolutions of 110, and I definitely encourage you to increase this for your final, production shot. Take this to value of somewhere around 150 or maybe 175 to create a very detailed looking, particle effects. The reason why just I cannot use a very high resolutions because this will, significantly dip down the overall performance of our frames. So let's go with the value of 110 and hit the option particle fill, and here we go. So let's hide the 3D text and simply change the particle types from points to the sphere just for your own considerations. And if you want the change in the color, you can definitely change the particle colors. Change this to the randomize ID and increase this. Let's have some more interesting colors of the sand. Let's say the brown, and let's say we go with light color, and finally another one. Alright, now let's go inside the collision sections, enable the self collide, use the appropriate values of the frictions as well as the stickiness, and increase the max self collide iterations to the 6. Make sure we are inside the nucleus node and we use the used plane, and we have the substeps, max collision iterations, as well as yes, another important thing, that is the utilization of the scale attributes. Over here we have the space scale set to the 1. Well, that's your own artistic decision. If you would like to change the values, you can definitely change this, but in this case I am working with the value of 1 only. So that's enough for this one. Now if we play the timeline, let's see what we have with the default state of the particles. So right now with values of friction and stickiness, we are having an effect like this, but still this effect is kind of an incomplete without the utilizations of the constraints. So let's select the particles and apply the constraints. Now instead of applying the constraints on all the particles, I definitely recommend you to select some particular portion of your text and select them very wisely with respect to the nice variations and gaps, so that we can actually utilize some interesting subtleties inside the overall reaction. Now with the limited amount of particles selected, go inside the nConstraint, go for the component to component, hit the option make create constraint. Alright, now let's move inside the dynamic constraint, change the connection method from nearest pair to, let's say, within max distance, and play according with your own values. 0.1 is fairly a less value. Let's go with the value of let's say 3. Alright, now let's move down and dip down the value of the strength. Let's say with the value of 1, and let's say 0.5. Still a high value, but not a problem. We can definitely come back and revisit the settings. So this time, if I try to play, this will significantly dip down the performance, because as I'm already including another nucleus component, that is the dynamic constraints. So let's see what we have. So till now the performance looks quite good, and here we have, and I guess the particle clustering is only on the top due to the excessive pressure. The bottom clusters have already broken, and still we have some fluffy particles, and we know how to deal with them. So we can select the dynamic constraints and get rid of the glue strength to a value of maybe 0.2. Alright, now let's play the timeline once again and see what we have right now. And I think so the glue strength is pretty less, but still we can have some nice clusters. As you can see, this is not falling, and over here we have, or we can simply animate this value as well, not a problem. Let's do one thing, let's increase the max distance to, I think the max distance is quite good. Let's increase the, let's say, the overall strength to maximum, let's say 5 by 5, and now let's see what we have. Let's reduce the glue strength to a value of, let's say, 0.180, And let's play the timeline. Alright, and here we go. So this time we are still able to have particle clusters, not a problem, and I think so this is quite good. This I'm actually looking for this one, man, provided the particles shouldn't, show some fluffiness. And I think so this is quite nice. I think we still have something over here, and here the particle cluster goes down, down. That's taking a bit amount of time, but yes, that's nice, not a problem. So we are quite happy with this kind of effect, and definitely you can increase the total number of particle count. Right now I'm having approximately 12,500 particles. So if you take this to a value of 125,000 particles, then definitely you can have some very nice and interesting scene. All right, and I can also see this with a different perspective. So let's say it can be a kind of an eatable object, so a kind of a bread, and there are some kind of, let's say, some food applied onto this in the form of some powders, or if you just think in that perspective, you can still have some nice and interesting things. So it's not something we are only limited to the domain of a sand. We can also have some nice and interesting things. It just depends how far we can think. All right, so that was all about the n particle and n constant. Now it's time to move to our main project, where I like to show you the effect of a dry sand in the human mesh. Alright, so see you there in the next clip.